celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
It's 2022, a new year. You would think there's a lot of good things to talk about right now when I come on and do the Wrestling is Real podcast tonight. Think about it. Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman back together again. After day one, Brock becomes WWE champion. You got Jungle Boy Luchasaurus becoming new tag team champions for AEW, and Jade Cargill being crowned the first ever TBS champion. And Dynamite, emanating from Newark, New Jersey in the Prudential Center, broadcast tonight for the first time in 21 years any wrestling on Superstation TBS, which I'm going to call it Superstation because there is something magical about it being on that channel for whatever reason. I would not have been surprised if they started it at 5 minutes after, but they did not go Turner time. But it was fun. Now, but that's what we're not going to talk about, unfortunately, because that's the part that sucks. I mean, I could be talking about Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill this weekend. Pay-per-view is going to be a rocking one this weekend, and I'll have a post show for that this coming weekend on Sunday. But no, we could be talking about Wrestle Kingdom. They just had 2 nights going on. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Would love to go and talk about that, but no. No, tonight we have to talk about something else that WWE does, and of course, playing into the clouds, the darkness that the IWC must get themselves pulled into. If it wasn't about Big Swole last week and talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, then it's the new releases now and the finalizing of the purge that was the Black and Gold NXT project. Whatever Triple H created, we know it's destroyed. It's over. It's dead. Tommaso Ciampa drops the belt to Bron Breakker. He's new NXT champion. Roderick Strong drops the NXT North American Championship to Carmelo Hayes, who now combines that with a cruiserweight belt. So he's a unified champion. Mandy Rose stands out, retaining her women's title. And yeah. And the crowd, the IWC, is upset. But what they will not care about is the fact the ratings went up for the last 2 weeks. It's gone up. So when NXT's ratings started dropping into the 600,000 viewers mark, and then we started seeing things change once again with the branding, a total rebranding, if you will, the Rainbow NXT 2.0 with all these new stars, and now we're here, and in about, 4 months' time, I wouldn't be surprised if the audience that has now come in to watch NXT 2.0 is a different audience, which means it's been a turnover. So there was a turnover of fans that might not be watching so much anymore, or maybe they are watching NXT because it's still Tuesday night viewing, and it's something that people were still watching anyway. And there's some stars that they were watching from the Black and Gold brand that are still there towards the end. You can see some of that, but what's happening is, you watch somebody on TikTok actually do a good explanation, is that, NXT doesn't need to be in existence as a Black and Gold brand as the super indie, because that's what AEW is. But AEW is a different thing altogether. It is the super indie, yes, but I would think super indies are more of what the NWA or Impact or MLW really serve at the behest right now, because they have the television product. With AEW, they have their own set of core stars, their pillars, which they definitely focused on tonight with Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus winning the NXT to be the AEW World Tag Team titles. Man, did I say that? Ooh. And then Jade Cargill, another person they've been building up for a while now, over a year, and they crown her with gold tonight. And Jungle Boy being one of the pillars in this company that they've really pushed behind. And they did that. But the question is now, what I have to talk about tonight is how this change, this transformation of NXT, and the further transformation of the main roster is going to be coming. Because now that NXT is completed, its turnaround, it's completely changed the Rainbow brand, and the audience has been retained. A 700,000 plus audience, or near 700,000 plus audience that they had. 662,000 viewers last night. We'd have to look at the breakdown and see what they did afterwards. But what it's worth, NXT has put themselves in a pretty good spot. That's what they're going to decide to do. You know, it's like, it's a lot to be said. And some of the changes they're making, because more talent keeps going away. We talked pretty extensively about the releases last week. We can now add 10 more. So let's bring up those names now that have been brought in to the mix that are now out. And let's talk about that. As of press time, the names we now have are Hall of Famer Road Dogg Jesse James. I remember, I think they had mentioned his name previously as a release, but it was not to be. 15-time champion, former NXT general manager William Regal, who has been the face of the NXT Black and Gold for many years. Chris Guy, also known as Ace Steel, who's a WWE coach and the original trainer of CM Punk. Dave Kapoor, a.k.a. Ranjan Singh, who was the former manager of the Great Khali, who has also done a lot of writing backstage for the main roster, specifically SmackDown. NXT creative producer Ryan Katz. Longtime referee, WWE official Scott Armstrong. Former New Japan Pro Wrestling and MLW writer George Carroll. Former NXT Tag Team Champions Timothy Thatcher and Danny Burch. Kathy Carino, a.k.a. Allison Danger. And Diamond Mine recruit Hideki Suzuki. They're all out. So there's an obvious thing where they're deciding to, make a lot of changes. The purge continues. Part of it is going to be for reasons that we know that, they can say it's budget cuts, but the truth is the budget's just being reworked for something else. So some of the money, some of the talent that was brought in, they do not want to create professional wrestlers. They do not want to take existing professional wrestlers and mold them into the WWE style. That's apparent. And the most apparent thing they did last night was Bron Breakker having his Cody Rhodes moment. Remember how Cody Rhodes initially, he took a sledgehammer to the throne a la Triple H? Symbolism continues last night because you saw a nice big gold X as in the NXT logo, the old NXT logo that Bron Breakker splits in half. And that's it. So Triple H, in terms of having the autonomy that he had under Vince McMahon, partly because of the fact he is married to the family, and because of his role as executive vice president of global talent strategy and development of WWE. The only question is he still that? Because we also know that it was a while back that he actually dealt with his cardiac event. And at the moment, we haven't heard anything else since from him. Now, that doesn't change anything about why the NXT brand was changed. That doesn't have anything to do with it. But that's the other thing that people have to understand as well. I mean, when you're thinking about the fact that Triple H, when his health is compromised, cannot continue the level of work he was doing on NXT and focusing on that. We know, obviously, some of the reasons why. And it shouldn't surprise anybody that Vince McMahon decided to choose the route he did by throwing NXT into an oncoming All Elite Wrestling promotion that was starting up and trying to stunt its growth, which it did. Let's just put it like this. It absolutely did slow down the growth of that brand. We know that. I mean, that increased 1.4 million viewers for that initial first time out with no competition on it. Because whatever it was with NXT, they weren't running that night. You know, they decided to go the head-to-head. And that was on purpose. And there were the changes for NXT being moved to Tuesday night to accommodate the NBC Sports Network and the move of various sports to move to Wednesday nights. Yeah, that decision was made. And now NXT didn't serve the purpose of being a Wednesday night show. I mean, they could have done something to keep it there on Wednesday nights, but they didn't. So, I mean, the thing was, the ratings were still tough for them anyway, regardless of that. Because when you look at the end of their run, their ratings were hurting towards the end. They were not doing so well at the end of the run. So we go back initially. I mean, we know that from last year, for 2020, we know there was a lot of changes that happened to the format of the show. But when we started getting things back to where they are now, you know, there's a lot of things that hamper NXT when it came to no Full Sail University, no more Thunderdome, or no more, they moved that Capitol Wrestling Center, and they had that set up. And no matter how much they tried to stack the card, they were trying to push it like it was a formatted show for the main roster. They were running it like a main roster show because of the stack of the card that they had to go and put together. With all that talent they had under contract, which it had to cost them some money to bring those people there. Because remember, a lot of those stars that were released from contracts, they were signed to have them avoid getting picked up by other promotions, namely All Elite Wrestling. So we don't know how much the contracts were, but they must have been significant because of the star power they had. Look, Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, if they wanted to, they could have gone out to the indies prior to All Elite Wrestling and still work other shows and probably make a good living, comparable to what they were making in WWE. The other thing, number two, was they were not trying to go up to the main roster. A lot of these stars here, they were not wanting to go up. They wanted to stay where they were at because they knew what was going on. So they chose to stay. When they had no aspirations, no ambition to go to the main roster, that might have been fine for the NXT Black and Gold brand, but that's not what Vince McMahon wanted. I mean, even just the thought process that, the sink or swim. You go to the main roster and you see all these stars from NXT that go up and they get blown up and they go back down and they fall apart. Or then you see the castaways that have moved over to NXT to get themselves back up or to just get a new lease on life. Your Finn Balor's, your Breezangos, right? All those, they come back down to come back up. So the transition made a lot of difference. Look, so it was unavoidable that USA Network was going to change they were going to make a program decision based on the corporate structure of NBC Universal, saying we're dropping the sports network, the NBC Cable Sports Network. We're dropping that, and we're going to move some of the programming over. So that was a decision on USA's part that they had to go. That was up on high, and the move was changed for sports programming to get moved over to USA Network. Thus, they had to take Wednesday nights out because they were putting up a big contract to pick up NHL. So that's what they did. Now, with that said, Triple H's last chance to keep what this was, this existing model of having performance centers in various locations. Okay, one of the things we can talk about for sure that is absolutely going to be something that Triple H is responsible for and can take the claim for was the building out of the performance center. Now, the fact that the stars that you're seeing coming in here to train and develop and to enhance themselves are not going to be the stars that Triple H brings in is not a shot to Triple H. Like, nobody should take any offense to the fact that Triple H or who's ever going to be there, that was his to bring in. And think about this. He was responsible for the whole setup of it. I mean, he was part of that the whole time. 2013, it was founded. July 2013. So 8+ years he had the run of this facility. This was the answer to going through other smaller promotions for a developmental system, a developmental territory. They chose to go different. Now, this right here is the one thing that you'll know that Nick Khan is not going to touch. Because that Performance Center is state-of-the-art. It's modern. It's exactly what they need for the next crop of stars, the athletes they're going to bring in. So this Performance Center was brought in mind for that. So Triple H gets all the credit for... Listen, he, first and foremost, is a Hall of Fame wrestler. And for everyone to go and assume that Triple H was going to just jump right in and be successful on every little aspect of what he was being given to do, he was given a long time to do it. The truth was the Performance Center, whether you liked who came in or not, or how much you supported those that came in or not, what did happen is that this was an answer to the fact that we saw that some of the stars that were coming in from other organizations, it was not panning out. And for such a large corporately traded company, a stock traded company, corporately owned, this big, humongous, this behemoth of a company, for them to not have their own personal facilities, it was important for them. They need to do that. And they put the money into it. So it's there. It's their combine, if you will, for athletes to come in. They'll also get a chance to go and perform and enhance themselves and work. And the other thing, too, is that some of the people that you have brought in here into the Performance Center, they're going to bring in coaches as opposed to bringing in trainers, people that have done wrestling school. They don't want to run this like a regular wrestling school. And they don't care for some of the wrestling schools out there that are building some of the talent out there, okay? The fact you might have had stars that were Killer Kowalski or George South or, whoever you got these days, Lance Storm, it doesn't matter. Because, the Team 3D training camp, whatever it is. I mean, there's not that part where those stars are going to be brought in and they're going to make a change to it. That's what they're not going to do. They've done lots of tryouts. They had a lot of different people they brought in. They tried so much. And give them credit. They did a really good job putting this together. So the cuts on the Performance Center are for the fact they're going to bring in new people. They're going to be athletes. See, they want athletes to be trained like athletes. They're not going to train athletes to become professional wrestlers. They're training athletes to become sports entertainers. Continue to maintain the athletic regimen that they have, the acumen they have, the endurance they have, and translate that into the ring, into a wrestling ring, and make it work. And use their natural charisma and enthusiasm and passion, among everything else, passion. They're bringing that all in to these stars coming up to build that. You can probably see a little bit of what's going on here because of what they're doing right now with the stars that have decided to go ahead and get behind winning belts in NXT. And the truth is, who they're building right now, you can't knock it. I mean, look, Bron Breakker, part of what is the appeal is the fact that he is second generation. The guy's a Steiner, and he is built of the same. I mean, literally, he is a clone of Rick and Scott Steiner combined. He is Steiner brothers combined together. The guy looks like $1 million. He is jacked. He's got great ability. Sure, he needs more time in the ring, but this guy is raw talent, and it's a bankable star. A bankable star, no matter what. We might have complained about the name for a little bit, but you know what? Bron Breakker, it's working. We're going to get into it. Look at Mandy Rose. Look, this is under the new system. And they completely changed his character. Mandy Rose, the Golden Goddess. To change her into this new toxic attraction deal, She's got an amazing new look. She's completely re-enhanced, refreshed, everything. Even the personality has changed. She has completely embraced this new persona. She's no longer just the another blonde in the ring, accompanying Sonya Deville, or just going out there herself and not being the ire to Otis's, delight. None of that. Because I really believe like the character's much more empowered. Yeah, listen, they make her sexy because she is. She's very attractive. She fits a role that fits very well for a lot of people. And it works. And the Toxic Attraction, that gimmick, that faction works. You could put them up to the main roster right now and they can make an immediate impact. Are they going to win titles yet? Maybe not, but they could. I couldn't put past the fact that if Mandy Rose and Toxic Attraction came up to the main roster and they decided to go after either Raw or SmackDown Women's Gold in a singles role for Mandy Rose, or Gigi Dolan and JC Jane, they decided to go after Tag Team Gold. Why not? I mean, it doesn't make a difference. But all that together makes a very good stable, and it's solid. And then you look at Carmelo Hayes. Now, surprising enough, Carmelo Hayes has worked quite a bit in wrestling before, and he made his way in through Beyond Wrestling and found his way into the Performance Center. So he was just a tryout. They made his way in, and it worked. You're not going to see a lot of guys that will come in that way and be able to go and say, oh, okay, we're going to get him in, and he's going to come right on in. It was almost a year ago he got signed. And it worked. And look, there are more guys that are coming through the way. Look at Parker Boudreaux, who's now Harland, accompanied by Joe Gacy. Look, that guy is also destined to make his way up. NXT 2.0, you can just see a small glimpse of the type of athletes they want to bring on board, because Parker Boudreaux was, 6'4", 265-pound football player with a look almost like a Brock Lesnar. And the guys they have right now are pretty solid. They have some stars that are still of the wrestling ilk that we don't know if they're going to do well or not, but you can just tell what they're working on, what they're doing, and how things are going to turn out. So let's go ahead and talk about the fact of what's going on now with this changeover, where Triple H created this Performance Center, had the run of the Performance Center, and had the run of the NXT brand, which was the pipeline for television exposure for everybody that came in through the Performance Center, and that were going to be viewed and overseen by Vince, Bruce, and whoever to be looked at for potential main roster selection and to be called up. If we had to look at the NXT superstars that made it up to the main roster and where they went, I mean, if you just want to take the ones that did make it through and try to evaluate how well they did, well, let's try it. Alexa Bliss was one and got brought in 2016 in the draft, and so far, she's been a success. Apollo Crews continues to be on the main roster. Professional wrestling background, has also done very well for himself. Wade Barrett also came from NXT from the competition era and was away but came back, and now he's back on board in a color commentator role. Baron Corbin is a main roster mainstay that came from football and worked his way, so he stays in. And, he's carved himself a nice little niche and continues to get pushed, continues to get a chance to do a different gimmick. They want to stand behind Baron Corbin, and why not? Happy Corbin. They like him. Bayley, Becky Lynch, Big E, who actually was more of the FCW route, but then did have the time doing the 5 count on NXT. Then you have Bray Wyatt, who had a long run in the company before getting dropped. You look at Carmelo came from that roster. Remember, there's a lot of stars that came from that roster. Have they done that much? Have they really, broken the needle that much? No, but you have the accumulation of what is the main roster, which is comprised of many from NXT. Carmelo, Chad Gable, Charlotte Flair, Dana Brooke. Then you go and talk about FTR, which is over in AEW. You got Dean Ambrose, now Jon Moxley, who hopefully will make his way back to AEW at some point. Hopefully he's doing well in the new year. Elias can still be coming back. We haven't heard anything from him, but he could very well come back, and he's not been released yet. You still got Finn Balor that's on that main roster, going back to NXT and coming back over. Kevin Owens, who was basically enhanced, and look, they re-signed him. They definitely felt confident with Kevin Owens to keep him on that main roster, keep him there, and he obviously has a lot of things left to go work on. You still got Naomi. Roman Reigns was part of NXT. Remember that. You still got Sami Zayn, Sasha Banks, Seth Rollins, Shinsuke Nakamura, Xavier Woods. That's a lot of names. That's probably about a good half of the roster. But then the other part they have is that, there's a lot of good names in that roster there. That then a couple have actually made it, to something much bigger and greater. When it comes to Roman Reigns, when it comes to Kevin Owens to a point, Roman Reigns has been crowned the top guy to a level of Brock Lesnar, John Cena, Batista, and The Undertaker, which I always use that example of the current era. And that's it. Of those stars, you've had former champions out of many of them in that list. But right now, you got 2 stars out of NXT that are main roster champions. You got, or 3 with Becky Lynch, Charlotte Flair, Roman Reigns. And then you're still looking at a couple of stars that are still such mainstays from SCW, which, for what it was worth, there was a lot of talent in SCW that made their way through. When you look at Bobby Lashley, well, actually, Bobby Lashley was OVW. You look at Dolph Ziggler, you look at Sheamus, you look at Drew McIntyre. All those guys came through there and made their way through. FCW, amazing still. And for what it's worth, it's a lot there that's good that you could appreciate. They've just have a bunch of older stars that are holding up the belts right now at the very top. And some stars that have been on top for so long. But you have to understand that meanwhile, we know that there's not that many stars that they've been able to go and get to a certain level, or they've chosen not to get to a certain level. Their issue is they choose not to. There are just only certain people that can actually just break that ground, that have the passion, that can go all the way. And I don't know what it is that Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins or Becky Lynch or Kevin Owens, I don't know what they have. What's the it factor that gets them to be completely, all in, work 300 days, put in all that work, and go through it. And muscle through, because they are iron people. To be able to work that grueling schedule, take what's given of them and make the most of it. They've done it for a long time. And when you look at some of the stars that were looked at during the end of the year, Survivor Series time, right? After Survivor Series, going into the start of the new year, into day one, and you look at some of the stars they were looking at and considering or giving some kind of shot with, it was that what you want period. We're going to give you what you want. The old Triple H line from, was it 2017? And you got to say to yourself, okay, Toni Storm was given an opportunity. Well, Toni Storm was overwhelmed by it for whatever reason, because she chose to ask for her release. We don't know the whole reason why, but obviously the schedule and what it was being asked of her was something that she wasn't able to get, was too much. And there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. I mean, that's okay. But Vince and his team, they expect something more. And I do think that the whole deal with Dolph Ziggler and that whole initial storyline to be used as eye candy, that was something that she didn't want to be a part of. And look, I understand, man. People are in a different mindset now these days where just certain storylines, you just can't do an Attitude Era storyline with some of these younger stars because they don't want to do it. It's not something for them to do. They don't want to be in this sexualized position. They don't want to do anything like that. And there's certain things they don't want to do because it goes against their own personal views, their own empowerment, their own kind of feelings. And that's okay too. But WWE just expects what they expect. And they're going to do what they're going to do with the stars they have. And wrestling fans like myself, yeah, we're not here to go and figure out what it is. But what I do know is they're doing things for a reason. They have their own direction. And even though they have their issues with the ratings, even though they have issues with the booking in between television matches, I mean, day one was still a pretty good pay-per-view. Nevertheless, it's just they do have the same people on top. Always the same people on top. And that's okay. I mean, listen, they just need to get some new stars. They need to refresh that roster. But they do not want to work with wrestlers, professional wrestlers that are going to get a mediocre response. Because the problem is, Toni Storm got no response. Liv Morgan still does not get a response. Big E, for the credit he got about 6 months worth being being a world champion, basically getting the Kofi push, also no response. And it's not just the fact that the crowd has to be a certain way or that there's some kind of social adulation for these stars. No, the ratings have to add up, and the tickets and the merchandise have to add up. We haven't seen Shotzi Blackheart in forever. Toni Storm left. Liv Morgan, she tried, but trying and feeling that she deserves to be a champion, that doesn't matter. It might be nice, to fantasize the fact that Liv Morgan should be a champion because she's just so good and she tries so hard and she puts all the effort out there. She tries her hardest. Well, trying your hardest isn't going to work for the WWE, right? That might work for other organizations. There's no doubt that Liv Morgan could probably do well in other organizations, but she has reached her threshold in the WWE, right? That's it. They're not going to put her over Becky Lynch. That's just no way. 10 times out of 10, they're not going to do that. Toni Storm is not going to get over on Charlotte Flair head to head. It's not going to happen. And should they have been built up to win and win and win so they could be considered that? Yes, but they're not going to do that. Because ultimately, Vince has to feel right. He's got to have his gut feeling that he's getting the right thing out of the star and that he's going to get somewhere with it. And he chooses not to. Not right now anyway. It's not for him. It sucks, but that's their choice. And no matter how much we look at Vince McMahon right now, 76 years old, and he looks like he's frail, his mind is still there. And for the most part, but once they decided to go make changes now to what they were doing when it comes to the direction now after day one, moving forward, well, they chose to go where they were going to go. And you know what happened? Brock Lesnar wins the WWE Championship. He comes on with Paul Heyman to start off Raw. And what do those ratings do? First hour, 1.807 million viewers. Second hour, 1.716. Final hour, 1.627. 1.7 million viewers on average. And that's up 8% for the week before. Their 18 to 49-year-old key demographic up almost 10% from the week before. And that's what happened. So their numbers went up. And they had Monday Night Football. And they had all the cable news shows. They did it. You know, that's what happens. And then we saw the change on NXT, and their numbers have gone up for the second straight week. Like, what was it, 640,000 last week? Now 662 this week after New Year's Evil. Their numbers are going to go up now because it's WrestleMania season. And the truth is that when you're looking at Tony Storm or Liv Morgan or Big E, you know, take your pick, and you're saying to yourself, you know, an Austin Theory, all these experiments, all these stars, oh, they've worked so hard. They're entitled. They deserve to be here, right? But if the numbers don't show, if the main audience, you are the diehard fans that are stands for these people. If they do not rub off to the main audience, which you can see in the crowds now, you're not hearing "this is awesome" chants or any kind of dueling chants from the crowds because it's a family audience that's there. And they're rebuilding that audience too. They're getting the audience they want. They want kids, they want parents, they want families back in the arenas now to watch these shows. And you can see that all the time right now. It's not that smart crowd we used to get all the time. That's gone because they've all gone to AEW shows now. And that's it. Their choice. So let's continue the whole point here. I got to get into the story itself. Now, two of the people that were actually released this for Monday, actually on Wednesday as we record this, Road Dogg and William Regal, considered to be Triple H's guys. Friendships goes back to WCW days. And even when William Regal was dealing with substance abuse issues many years ago, he went to bat for him. Fightful Select reported that, according to talent and staff at the NXT and Performance Center, they are saying that the latest cuts were done directly to remove Triple H's hires. Bron Breakker's entrance, kicking the old NXT X in his entrance, was not received well backstage, and the feeling was that the company was sending a message. Scotty Too Hotty had an interview with Chris Van Vliet on why he left WWE in November, was training over there. And he says, quote, over the last couple of months, once the pandemic happened, the releases started happening, the releases took a big toll on him. When he became a coach, I had no idea how much I would love that job, and those guys are like your children. You create these relationships with people, you get them released. You see them released, you find out with everybody else. My buddy in Nashville texted me, oh, the releases are happening again. Then I jump on Twitter, and I see somebody released that was in my class, and I just saw 3 hours before. That's how I'm finding out, and dude, this is not cool. And when it comes to the direction, he says that they're doing tryouts for people who have never done this. They're hiring all these college athletes. I've always said you can't teach passion, and you need passion to do this. No matter how much money you're making, if you're on the road doing 200 shows a year and you're traveling, which adds about 50 days, you're looking 250 to 300 days on the road. No matter what you're making in money, you need passion. I think at some point it will swing back the other way, and they will go, where are the men at? We need men. Then you will see a bunch of guys who come in here are a little bit older and more experienced. Putting green on live television can be dangerous. It's working so far. The NXT experiment so far of the changes they made has worked. I don't think they're going to lose, and they've lost no traction so far. And people are responding pretty well to what they've done. So going forward, if you're looking at what WrestleMania might look like, we know that Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns are going to be front and center. The Royal Rumble, I mean, you look at who they have. There was a chance that Seth Rollins was actually supposed to win the title, if not for Roman Reigns getting COVID or getting infected with COVID. Seth Rollins is going to get the title. No matter what, Big E was not going to hold on that belt going into Royal Rumble season and to WrestleMania season. What's happening WrestleMania season is the greatest hits, The old guard, just like they did in July when the touring came back up, they're going to have to go back to that again. They're going to have to try to go ahead and start pulling some strings. They're going to have a couple of returns coming up to the main roster from people coming back from injury that are going to come back up. Elias, you could have, you'll have Alexa Bliss coming back next week. You'll have Bayley most likely coming back as well. Like, there's a lot of stars that will be coming back. And when they do, you'll continue to start forgetting about all these other people that were part of things in October, November, December, and they're just going to be forgotten. They'll just go back into the mid-card purgatory, and that's it. But the idea here, which makes sense to me for Nick Khan, given his sports background and all the people he's brought in through CAA to come into the company and to bring them into the mix, he's made quite a few changes, and he has really brought himself up to a certain spot. People are paying attention to what they're doing. Sports Business Journal recently just put out a list of the most influential people in sports business. In the media influencers category, Vince McMahon, Nick Khan, Steven McMahon were all here. Sports Business Journal mentioned the fact that there's a clear repositioning of WWE to a media business under Nick Khan. Two big projects in the works, Netflix's docuseries on Vince McMahon, and the Blumhouse developed the United States of America versus Vince McMahon TV series. As Sports Business Journal said, quote, high-profile projects include a multi-part Netflix docuseries on Vince McMahon's life and a deal with Blumhouse Television on a scripted series about WWE in the 1990s. Most likely, when it comes to Vince McMahon, there might have been a time where Triple H might have been considered the predecessor, the understudy to take over. But it's obvious now that Nick Khan is the man. And based on the acumen, based on the resume, based on the experience, based on the ability that Nick Khan has, he's ultimately going to be the guy that takes over this company. Nick Khan is the guy that's going to run this company in the future. It's solidified. And whether you like it or you don't like it, he's making the right moves. WWE has a future in place, and they are aggressively trying to work their way into fixing the main roster problems. Listen, you're not going to fix the problems with booking with professional wrestlers right now and doing something that's similar to what AEW, MLW, NWA, Impact, New Japan, CMLL, AAA, you're not going to do professional wrestling like everybody else. That's what they don't want to do. They've always been trendsetters. They want to do things their way, their style. When Vince McMahon allowed the Performance Center to happen, and Triple H decided to make it a super indie and decided to bring all these great stars, hey, thank you, Triple H, for what you did. But the problem was, and I said this many years ago on this program, they lost their direction. You needed these stars like an Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, whatever. You needed these veterans to help enhance the younger talent. But that wasn't what happened. Instead, you did the thing that you're not supposed to do in wrestling. In professional wrestling, the veterans are supposed to help to try to get the younger talent over. And I got to the point where you have stars that have been around for a long time, skilled in their ways. Hey, they're very talented and great wrestlers, and they got a bigger spotlight than before. But that doesn't benefit WWE in the long run. It benefits everybody else. So what AEW is benefiting from right now are stars who were NXT stars, and they are now relishing. They're relishing, first of all, what Ring of Honor let go because they couldn't pay these guys. And by no fault of Triple H, he basically built the crop of stars that are now on AEW. All right? I don't know how much. Well, I mean, look, Shawn Michaels, I'm sure, probably had a say, along with Triple H, in getting Daniel Bryan in, who's now Bryan Danielson again. because he was in the competition era of NXT. You look at Adam Cole, you look at Kyle O'Reilly, you look at Bobby Fish, you look at Malachi Black, Andrade. I mean, so many stars that were looked at, and they're now that a good chunk of that NXT talent is now over in AEW. And the people that are upset right now are the ones that wanted it to stay in WWE because they wanted it under what they like. Under what they've liked for a long time. To see those stars associated with the stars like a Stone Cold, Rock, Undertaker, Mick Foley, whatever. But they're never going to become the next Stone Cold, Undertaker, all those Attitude Era stars, the Hulk Hogan or whatever. They're not going to be the next Roddy Piper, Randy Savage. They're not going to be that. They're not made in the same cloth. They're great wrestlers, though. I mean, there's a reason why Daniel Bryan was able to break through, because you just can't hold talent down that much. Like, it took an outcry of the audience to get him where he is now. Because if he didn't have that great career in the WWE with what he accomplished there, you take credit of the fact that he met his wife there, two beautiful kids together, and he's over here, and now he's, on the other end of his career and working dream matches and working a type of wrestling like he remembered before, but having the success behind him. He has nothing to prove right now, but he wants to continue to keep proving himself. I mean, he doesn't want to be told, I want to retire and I got to sit on the sidelines. He wanted to work, and he is. To his credit. There's no judging on the fact of all these stars that are being brought over to AEW and how well that's going to help that brand. Hey, Vince McMahon, he put the bluff out there and he definitely delivered on it. This guy has balls. Let me tell you something. For those that think Vince McMahon has lost his marbles, he has lost his touch. No, he hasn't. The old man still got it. But he does need the stars around to manage his vision. I mean, he needs the type of stars to try to create some of these stars and do something with them that doesn't work. I mean, he tried it with like a Keith Lee. I'm going to change it. Karrion Kross, we're going to change him. All the stars he decided to change because it wasn't his. Vince has his own vision. He wants to do that. Nick Khan wants to continue Vince's vision because what Nick Khan knows, he wants to continue the same direction that Vince would do. Like, even when Vince is gone, Nick Khan wants to follow what Vince created. I think he respects what Vince has created for the business and what he wants to do in the style of wrestling that there is today. Sports entertainment. Nick Khan is going to bring this company up to another level of sports entertainment like we've never seen. The future of sports entertainment. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. We know that. But it's going to work. A little note. Near's Evil drew the highest total viewership for NXT 2.0 since Halloween Havoc. So it continues to grow up. There's a whole lot more work that has to be done. And we have to see what some of these next in line athletes do once they're into the system and what they become. We have to wait on all that. So let's go through a couple of things we got to talk about before we're going to wrap things up for tonight. Hard to Kill is this weekend. I need to go and talk about that, and we'll go ahead and run into that real quickly, what we have coming up for that. So it'll be held at the Factory of Deep Ellum in Dallas, Texas. We have 8 matches announced. So Mickie James will take on Deonna Purrazzo in a Texas death match for the Impact Knockouts Championship. I think Deonna Purrazzo will retain that, will get that belt back. You got a 3-way match for the Impact World Championship. Moose defending against Mack, Cardona, and W. Morrissey. And I think Moose will retain. I don't see where Morrissey or Cardona win here. Moose in the role here being the guy that's, giving Morrissey the chance to go after the belt as promised. And Moose is going to find a way to get around this in the three-way match. We'll see how that's going to work out. But I think Moose, after the tremendous, crappy, shitty heel way to win the belt at Bound for Glory, to see him put this belt on the line now and to try to go and take on this three-way match, it's going to be interesting. Inaugural Knockouts Ultimate X match. This might be a real standout on this show. Ultimate X with Chelsea, Jordynne Grace, Lady Frost, Rachael Ellering, Rosemary, and Tasha Steelz. And I'm not, listen, I do not want to say anything bad here, but Rachael Ellering and Jordynne Grace, it's going to be interesting how well and how agile they're going to be going up on those top ropes to grab the X. That's going to be the interesting part. So a lot of strength for those girls to go ahead and pick up. They got a little bit of weight on them. And I'm not judging them. But, that's kind of like, seeing heavyweights out there working the Ultimate X matches. That was kind of tough. I don't know if I ever saw the Samoa Joe that when he was X champion, did he ever do an Ultimate X? I don't know that. Because if he did, I don't know how he would have gotten up there so well working a match like that. Actually, Ultimate X, he did in 2006. But still, can imagine that must not have been easy for you to have that upper body strength to go and work those ropes and climb those. Now, I'm going to take the number one contender for the Impact Knockouts Championship. I'm going to say, I'll say Chelsea Green will get that. Josh Alexander versus JONAH in a singles match. I'll take JONAH to win over Josh Alexander, even though I know Josh Alexander is trying to work his way back up to go after Moose and get the championship that he lost, unfortunately, due to the cash-in. I think they're going to just put Josh Alexander in the storyline to kind of keep him losing control of himself, trying to work his way back, and all he does is continue to take steps backwards. And then we'll have to see him work his way back up to get to that main event again to go after that belt. 10-man hardcore war match. Eddie Edwards, Rich Swann, Willie Mack, Heath, and Rhino against the Good Brothers and Violent by Design. And I'm going to take the heels in this match. Inspiration versus the Influence. And for the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championships, I think Inspiration will win and retain. Trey Miguel versus Steve Macklin for the Impact X Division Championship. I'm going to say it's Steve Macklin is going to upset at Hard to Kill. And the Jonathan Gresham will defend the Ring of Honor World Championship against Chris Sabin. Man, that's going to be a good match. Wow. And I think Gresham will retain. And that's it. That's coming up this weekend. And that is going to be Saturday night. And I will be doing a post show, which I know a lot of you like looking forward to here on the program. And we here on WrestlingWorld.com and on YouTube. So look for that anywhere you find podcasts. So I'll do a post show for that coming up this weekend. You can look forward to that. A couple of things you're going to think about as well. This weekend, NWA USA, which is the next incarnation of NWA Power, continues on YouTube. The deal has been made, and now NWA is going to have that all-access plan, which I haven't read what that's all about. But the thing is, they're going to do they're kind of going to do a style where they want to also include the pay-per-views, so that you can actually watch pay-per-views as well, or everything else, which is really nice. I'm going to get the story on that. So back on Fridays, it'll be starting back on YouTube again. You have Power on Fridays, NWA USA streaming on Saturdays. And the next pay-per-view event will be Power Trip, taking place Saturday, February 12th. Another thing I want to bring up as well, MLW is also doing a new series, MLW Azteca, that will be starting up. And they already have matches that are coming up. It'll be coming back Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I believe that's on... Oh, yeah, it'll be on Stream Worldwide for free, MLW's YouTube channel, Fight TV, and nationwide on cable and Dish on BN Sports. So they'll have right now coming up for their the initial episode for MLW Azteca, an Apocalypto match, Alex Hammerstone and Pagano versus King Huertas and Taurus, Richard Holiday versus Psycho Clown, a trios match, Aramis, Destiny, and Mistasis Jr. versus Ares, Black Danger, and Dinamico, all coming up as well. And they're going to have the super fight coming back in Charlotte on February 26th. I'm wondering if that's going to be a pay-per-view or not. Interesting. There's a whole lot more to it. Overall, the new year is promising. I mean, we're seeing now MLW's got a lot of new things right now with the Azteca stuff and everything they're working on over there. I think I mentioned last week Alex Hammerstone signed a new contract with them, so that's set. Nick Aldis signed a new contract or an extension with NWA. But who is going to be the company that will really stand out while Ring of Honor is taking a break or might not be coming back, which I still think is going to be the case? There's still room to see what happens over here and then what Impact Wrestling is going to do themselves. It's all good stuff. But most importantly, 2022 is the direction where this company, WWE, is going to go. Where I think now that the NXT purge is complete, the main roster purge is coming up next. They're going to have to start working on, they're obviously going to put some intimidation now on the roster when it comes to those that are just there collecting paychecks, just working through the business and reinstituting a new level of passion in that company and a loyalty to Vince. And that you're just not here for a paycheck anymore. That Vince wants a certain level, whether fans like it or not. I mean, fans just need to go and grow up and come up to the realization that entitlement or stars being entitled to something, that doesn't work in WWE. WWE is an old mindset. An old mindset because of what Vince is. But instituting a lot of things to try to create a forward-thinking company. But no matter what, work ethic, loyalty, knowing how to toe that company line, and taking every opportunity given, whether bad or shit or good, taking them all and putting the most of your ability to it and getting yourself over that crowd, no matter what is given to you. We kind of take for granted the fact that there was a lot of stupid things that certain stars had to do when they were big stars. Some stuff that was goofy, some stuff that was stupid, some stuff that was, didn't even make any sense. But they overcame it. And those are the kind of stars that are going to make their way up and will break through and stay in the company and will be rewarded for their loyalty, because this company has no choice but to start, once they now feel confident with the roster they have and giving opportunities and trying to actually put more than one person in the mix. When you're looking at WrestleMania coming up this year and Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and, Becky Lynch and Sasha Banks and Charlotte Flair are your focuses, you got to have more than that. They have to have other stars. They have to figure that out. That's going to be the ongoing saga that is World Wrestling Entertainment. What are they going to do this year now that they've really purged out all those stars that were professional wrestlers that many other companies would love to pick up? We know there's a bunch of them that are still under their non-compete clause and some that are not. So we're going to see some more debuts. That'll be part of the excitement. But what will WrestleMania look like? It's all changing here. And remember, more importantly than anything else, they got a lot of big stadium shows to fill. They need more stars than just who they have. They're going to have to pull the trigger on some people. We got to start building up. We probably don't even know who they are yet. But we have to go and sit around and wait for it. See what they're going to pull up. What are they going to come up with? That's the focus of the series here, Wrestling Observer Podcast. We'll keep looking at it for you. In the meantime, I will come back this Saturday night to do a post show for Impact Wrestling's Hard to Kill. Until then, come back for another Wrestling Observer Podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real Podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.